A real Superman can take a bullet to the eye and not even blink. This little bitch cosplayer needs to harden the fuck up. Hello everybody, or at least those of you that are left now that I've managed to send half of you down into the comments to pound away at your keyboard getting all upset at me and not bothering to watch the rest of the video before you make your comments. Let's talk about the new Superman trailer. So obviously maybe the Superman isn't as soft as I initially thought, because we're not even a couple of seconds in and he's bending over this little girl and breaking her neck in a total Zod move. Take that, that'll serve you right for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. One thing I've learned is to not underestimate James Gunn, so maybe my opinion on this is slightly shifted. For one thing, he knows how to start a story off well. Right off the bat, he put Superman and us in a situation that we don't often see, Superman bleeding out. Now, obviously, this is great because one of the problems that people seem to have with Superman is exactly how powerful he is. So this is a great hook to start off with, but then it gets better because the next thing that we see is Crypto the Superdog. Now, this obviously means that James Gunn is taking a lot more inspiration from the old school Superman comic books and not focusing so much on the more serious tone in later years. The 1970s and 1980s brought a lot of crazy cool things to Superman, things that made him a lot more interesting as a character. So I, for one, I'm very glad to see that they're looking back at those roots instead of what we've seen in more modern years after the serious takes on Batman and things like that kind of pushed Superman into a more serious direction. I think the leaning towards the 1980s can also be seen in the choice of superheroes that seem to be part of this story, like for instance Guy Gardner and Metamorpho. Both characters were part of my favorite run of the Justice League way back in the 80s. Now, I might have been a fan of the Justice League, but I really didn't like Guy Gardner as a hero at all, because he's just a little bit too abrasive. And if there's a cocky, arrogant asshole that could have played the role to perfection, then I guess Nathan Flynn is the perfect guy for this. As usual with any Superman movie, the villain has to be Lex Luthor because Superman doesn't have any other good villains at all. None. Thankfully, though, it seems like this Lex Luthor has a bit more humanity to him. He actually seems to get upset a little bit at some point in the trailer, which is good to see because I'm kind of tired of the Lex Luthor who's either angry or he just doesn't give a shit or he's so smart that he doesn't care about humans. This one looks like he might actually have a good point as to why he doesn't like Superman. Also, Nicholas Hoult has been killing it lately, which leads me to another thing. The casting in this movie is absolutely on point. Everybody seems to be perfect in this. There was one moment in this trailer where I got super excited because I thought they actually got rid of not Henry Cavill and decided to cast Noah Centineo instead. But then I realized it was actually David Corenswet. Now, this was also a great moment for me because I was like, holy crap, the glasses actually work. I did not recognize the actor at all. In actual fact, this clock looks like the actor's looking at the inspiration of All-Star Superman in terms of actually looking at how the physicality between Clark Kent and Superman is something completely different. All-Star Superman is an obvious inspiration for how this movie looks, right down to the underpants on the outside, which is a look that I'm never ever going to like. However, All-Star Superman did a million things right, but one of the best things that it did was the way that the artist, Frank Quitely, portrayed Clark Kent versus how he portrayed Superman. It made the idea of the dual identity a lot more believable. What I also like about this is there seems to be a lot of humanity to this Superman. They're not ignoring the fact that he's Clark Kent, and they're not ignoring the fact that he comes from a small little farm in Kansas. So we get these tiny little moments within the trailer that already makes me feel hopeful. And then, of course, the color palette throughout this whole thing is vibrant and happy. And this is the kind of hopeful Superman that I really love. I think most people appreciate the more human feeling Superman. After all, he needs to be more than a bird. He needs to be more than a plane. He needs to be more than just a pretty face beside a train. We need to kind of feel that it's not easy to be him. Okay, so I know in my other video, I really clowned a lot on Superman sitting there all sad and mopey on his couch while the world was being destroyed outside the window. But now I'm starting to think maybe that isn't a destructive thing that's on the outside at all. Maybe it is just some kind of a light show over the city because there's a moment in the trailer where Lois and Clark seem to be hanging out and talking while all of this stuff is happening. It's great that in the trailer they're already establishing that there's some kind of relationship between Lois and Clark or Lois and Superman because she ends up making out with both of them. So either she's cheating on them both or she actually knows what his identity is. This movie is already packed with a lot of other heroes and a lot of other things happening, so we don't really need that subplot of Clark Kent trying to hide his Superman identity from Lois. However, if there are 10,000 civilians per second getting killed out there, then I have to commend his commitment to getting some. Anyway, that's it from me. We're off to a very optimistic start with this movie. It seems to be a lot better than I initially gave it any credit for, which just goes to show don't judge a book by a picture or cover. If you made it all the way to the end, I salute you. And you're also wondering why I didn't address the elephant in the room, which is where the hell have I been for all of this time? Well, watch out for future video on that. And if you don't actually care where I've been for the past couple of months, that's also absolutely fine. I'll catch you in the next one.